why don't you just introduce yourself? You know, your name, your tag, your main. For anyone who might not know.
I'm David. My tag was Kasparov. I'm kind of like low-key retired. My initial tag, I think, was Youthful Swagger Child when I first started at ECSB. And my name is Marth. Although I fucked around with Fox and Falco a bit during ESP tournaments.
So I guess to start, how did you choose? Well, I guess you didn't choose your name. So how did you either pick your tag or your main?
So Youthful Swagger Child was like kind of a joke among some of my friends in high school, and I just thought it was like a really funny combination of words. So I made that my initial name, and then people at SB, like, it was pretty polarizing. The tag was pretty polarizing.
Yep.
Some people hated it. Some people were just like, it's too long, I don't like it. Some people were like, it doesn't even make sense, I don't get it. So I ended up changing it to Kasparov, I think, in my like junior year.
Yeah, I think it was around that time.
Yeah, I just did that because it was simple, and I don't know. I didn't really watch too much chess at the time, but I just liked the idea of being somewhat strategic. And you know, Garry Kasparov is a really good chess player, so he was obviously strategic. And it kind of had a nice sound to it.
That makes sense. Would you say that you like the tag change more, or are you pretty like neutral to it? Do you see it as like an upgrade, a side grade, a downgrade, or like was it just for the people?
It's a side grade. I like Youthful Swagger Child, but with a tag like that, it's so like maximalist that you kind of have to like play. I felt like I had to play kind of cool.
Extra,
yeah. And at a time when I was trying to get better, like that was kind of I think that was inhibiting me a little bit. So the tag change kind of made it just so like, you know what, play whatever. Whatever works is good. And that's kind of like the mentality I was trying to get used to, instead of playing necessarily for like spectators or to look cool.
So it's like an internal and external like shift for a bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's cool. So when did you start playing? When did you join the SB scene? Like, do you remember like how and
yeah?
when?
I think my first tournament at SB was an Ivy Vapor during the summer. That would have been the summer before my freshman year, so 2016. But I'd actually played Melee in SB, I think about 8 or 9 months before that, because I came up to visit the campus before I chose SB as my school, and I played with Tommy and Tony because they're from my hometown, so I played a little bit at their apartment there. But yeah, my first local was Ivy Vapor. I'm pretty sure I lost to Stevens Luigi, and I think I lost to like Shane Masuda, or I might have lost to Cam actually. I'm not sure.
Okay, so a Luigi and a Falco.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's pretty indicative of my time at SB playing Luigis and Falcos.
Yeah, I mean that makes that's pretty
the
fair.
SB special.
Yeah. When did you get into Melee exactly? Like when, how, like what are the details of that?
I started playing, I think, my sophomore year of high school. Some of my friends just kind of played casually with me, and then we discovered the competitive scene. It might have actually been a little bit after sophomore year, because I think our first tournament that we watched was Apex 2015. And I can't really place that in my high school timeline, but it was around that time. So I guess I've been playing for like almost 6 or 7 years now. Yeah, that feels almost wrong to say, but yeah, I think that's about that.
Okay. So when you got started, like were your like goals and interests like what were they at? Like, you know, when you joined, like what was your your take and like your perspective on like the game?
When I first started playing, it was kind of fun because I lived in SoCal when I went to high school. So I actually lived very close to the Mayhem venue. And so I got to go to Mayhems a lot, and I would just get whooped because people there were really good.
Yeah, I remember.
And it was just kind of fun to improve. It was just, I played with my friends in high school, and we were all pretty bad, but it was just fun to mess around. When I got to SB, I was kind of like, oh, people here are good, but like not that good. So if I tried, I could definitely become like one of the best. And I think my mindset was always to improve. At least my first 4 years, it was always to just like improve and become the best in SB, because I felt like that was pretty attainable.
Do you? So you mentioned Mayhem, like living close to there. Was that the first tournament you attended? Was it a Mayhem?
I think so. Yeah.
Damn, that's crazy. Do you remember who you played at
I
all?
I remember. I don't remember who exactly I played. Um, I do remember playing Franz. One of the mayhems I went to.
Mm-hmm.
He whooped my Marth game one, and I think I tried to counterpick him with Falcon, and I counterpicked him Falcon with Falcon, and I went to Battlefield, and I think I took the first two stocks, and then he came back and he beat me because my Falcon was, very, very two dimensional,
Yeah.
possibly even one dimensional. I think I just stomped and nared.
Yeah.
I almost took a game from Connor the Kid. Really funny because I think that was like an era where people were, starting to shield drop, but it was considered like kind of hard still. Like it was very controller dependent.
Yeah.
And we were playing on a modded Wii, and he, for some reason, I think it was a Wii without native control.
Right.
So he couldn't shield drop, and we were playing game 2 on FOD. And I think he spot dodged like 30 times that game just trying to shield drop, and he was so tilted that I almost took a game off him. I could just, I think I lost that game, but he just tilted beyond belief. It was so funny.
Yeah, that sounds really frustrating, dude. I remember
Yeah, definitely.
one of my controllers. I remember it was my second year. I was like, I forget which setup it was, but it was one of the ones on like on my floor, and it was like the native control on that one was set. I think you're supposed to keep it on, but that one was set off. But when it was off, like I could shield drop like perfectly easily on like both sides. But when it was on, I was just like I couldn't do anything. Like they're just like shield dropping. So I remember that was like really funny because I was like, guys, it's so easy. You just do this, and then like they're like, oh hey, we've been playing with native control off this whole time, and they flipped it on, and I was like, I just got sauced. Like, but yeah, the
So weird.
would you say that your first so coming out of your first tournament, like did you feel like it was just like, oh, that was like an interesting time, or did you kind of walk out like with a different like goal or perspective after that?
Oh no, it was definitely just fun meeting people, and the vibe of Heavy Vapors was so chill. Like for people who don't know, it was just in like the back of the smoke shop, and you're just kind of people just having fun, like 4 setups, really not much room for friendlies, so it was a lot of people like watching and talking shit.
Yeah.
And commentators are like right across from like half of the setup, so if you're playing if you were playing on a setup out of the bar, you could just hear them talking about how bad you were, and it was really funny.
Yeah.
It was a great time.
Yeah, that's definitely.
Pretty sure Malachi talked shit about me. Like,
oh yeah,
on half of my recorded sets there.
That's definitely possible. That's definitely like a vibe that I feel was never truly recaptured in SV Melee. Like it was like really, it really just was one summer. That was like it.
I'm very lucky. I think Sam and I are really lucky that was our first summer here because it set a super cool tone for the scene.
Yeah. So going back a little bit, how did you like? Was Marth your first main, and how did you end up like sticking with that character?
Yeah, Marth was always my first main. So when I started playing the game, I don't know if it was because I watched the documentary and I liked Ken, or if I just saw U2 King's chain grabs and I was like, ooh, I like optimal things. I'm gonna do that. But also like Marth is just, he's really easy for entry level players, so I could beat my friends pretty fast. And to be honest, like competition in Melee has always been kind of why I like playing it. I'm a very competitive person, so being able to be the best among my friend group is always important to me. So playing Marth was like an easy kind of a hack to do that. They were all trying to play like Falco and Falcon, trying to be cool, but it takes a lot more finesse to be good with those characters, so it takes longer to get good, I think.
And then and you just ended up, you mentioned earlier that you kind of dabbled with like both the Spacies, I think, at some point. So what made you kind of want to like move around with them, and like when playing them, did you ever like consider like switching or like dual or co-maining any of them, or was it like have you always like had your head to like your heart and mind set on Marth?
It's a pretty tempestuous relationship. In the past few years, I've had there's been like a lot of anti-Marth propaganda and I'm always somebody who I want my like whoever I'm playing to be enjoying the game.
Right.
And I kind of got the impression from certain people in the scene that like they didn't really like playing against Marth, and everybody loves beating up on Spaceys, and especially when my Spaceys were bad, it was a lot more fun to just kind of let people play like a character that they enjoyed playing. I think competitively though, I've always been like Marth is my best character. If I'm really being serious and I'm trying to improve, when I'm in that kind of mindset, I'm playing Marth.
Okay, that makes sense. Would you say that Marth sort of do you think, okay, so this is a little bit of a chicken and the egg question. Do you feel like your perspective and like values, play style for like the game is like, did that come first and then like the like Marth as a character is like your optimal expression of it, or like do you think playing him is the thing that honed like that like kind of formed the bubble around like where all those things would grow and form?
It was probably more so character after the philosophy. I'm kind of a chump checker in most of the games I play. I try to figure out like the most immediate advantage and just kind of like leverage that. So like whatever people are doing the most wrong, I'll kind of base my playstyle around that. And it's probably not the best in terms of like getting better at a certain thing, because as long as you're at a certain level, if you know the exploits of that level of player and you just kind of take advantage of them, it's a good way to keep winning. It's a good way to be really consistent at winning, but it's not a good way to get better. So I think it was probably just that like I can play Marth really consistently and just beat people, and I think that's why I like the character. It's a lot less like hot and cold than playing Fox, at least for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you think that playing, like, do you ever, I guess, regret like not picking another character, or are you like happy that like you like, because you mentioned like maybe how like playing Spaceys, it was like you felt like your opponents were like able to enjoy the game more, and like maybe your enjoyment was also like similar level overall. Like, do you ever have any like, I guess, like regrets or like second thoughts about like having stuck with the character you did, or do you sometimes think back like, oh, maybe I should have mained this character instead?
No, I don't think I've ever had that regret, because if I really felt that way, I would have just switched.
Yeah,
if it was like
sense.
if it was that strong of a thing, then I would have just switched. But it's always kind of like, it's like in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, I feel bad for the person that they don't like playing against this character, but also it's like, it's also not my problem. Like, if you don't want to play against me, you don't have to play against me. If you don't want to play against me, then you're gonna get beat. I'm gonna beat you in bracket, and that's fine.
Yeah. Right.
So
makes sense.
At some point, you just gotta be like, suck it up. But it also kind of sucks when you're just playing friends with your friends and you hit them with some Marth cheese, and they're like,
yeah.
I don't know. I didn't watch the Sam podcast yet, but I've definitely given Sam, Ernie, Spencer some existential moments playing Marth.
Yeah. I mean, it's there's a lot of I don't know. There's a lot of gimmies on all sides of the pond, so I definitely. I mean, it feels like if people, it feels like, yeah. I mean, I understand why people take, especially I think people's frustration with characters is amplified when they see players at the top level like falling victim to like similar things, because it can make it feel even like more impossible to overcome in a way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that makes sense though. Like, I think that Sam also mentioned like how it's hard to like how it's important to like feel like you're both the people playing, like when you're playing outside of tournament, like are having a good time, which I guess like makes me want to ask you as well. Would you say that you like, if there's like someone that you want to like play with outside of tournament, be it for practice, for fun, anywhere around or in between, how do you balance like your value of like the quality of gameplay and like the sort of personality match?
I'll always play with my friends because I just enjoy being around them. But I mean, if somebody who like was like an automaton was the best in SP Melee, I would probably still hang out with them and play with them, just because I really value practice and getting better. And honestly, like I'm a pretty low bar type of person, and like social interaction. Like somebody can be pretty, I guess, for lack of a better word, bland, because I feel like I'm pretty bland, and that's totally fine with me. If somebody's a character, I enjoy that, but I don't necessarily like need any certain personality.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned practicing and stuff. Did you have like at any point, like, did you ever have like a practice routine or like anything that you would call like something like that?
Yeah, freshman year, I had a practice routine. I probably annoyed the shit out of my roommates because I would just play by myself, and they would just come back from like dinner or whatever, and I would just be playing, and they were like, "Dude, you look so sad. Like you're just playing against CPUs. What are you doing?" I was like, "No, I'm just practicing. Just chill, let's chill." Yeah, I probably had like a 20. At the height of it, it was probably like a 20-minute routine.
Okay. And it was a lot of just like what kind of went into that for you? Like what to you was important to have in like a practice routine?
Just movement and chain grabs. Those were like the biggest things. Movement, so like wave dashing, dash wave dashing. You're landing on the platform. Movement out of shield.
Yeah.
Ledge dashing, bread and butter stuff.
Right. Okay. Do you think that it served you well, or do you think that like it was? Do you think it was like too much, too little, or like do you think it was pretty effective for what you were trying to do with it?
I think I didn't really have like a super focused improvement regimen. It was more of an upkeep regimen.
Okay.
And then when I
so it's more of like keep your floor steady or like raise it than it was to like move like your skill cap up. Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't super good at creating drills that would make me better. I just kind of I try to like think of situations during tournaments and friendlies and try to figure out solutions to that, and that's how I kind of try to get better.
How would you say, like, for yourself between like tournament and friendlies, like how would you say like your mindset is like different in tournament compared, like what changes for you when you're like playing in a bracket versus just like playing a person next to you for fun?
That's a good question. I think I try to like killer instinct definitely comes out of me in tournament. If I feel like I can hit you with cheese, like if I can do something that might have a lower rate of success, but like if it hits, it will like demoralize you. I'll do things like that more. So it's especially nice being in a local scene because you know what's going to tilt different people. So like for example, if I'm playing, I think his tag's a white smurf, right? If I'm playing Nick.
Yeah.
I know that if I like hit him with a couple of dumb things like in the first game, he's probably not going to play as well. Like his heart's not going to be in it. So I'll probably go for those things more. Then if he doesn't, fall for it, then I'll just play more honest. But definitely, like, I'm down to cheese the fuck out of people. I don't care.
Yeah.
in tournament.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, in tournament, like, you're not supposed to have any like reservations about like. There's no conditionality to the win, really, other than like the rule. Exactly. Like, as long as they're in the boundaries of the rules, like people might like you more or less for it. But I mean, the goal of a tournament is like to win, not to like gain favoritism. Generally, for most people.
Yeah.
So, in that respect, like, do you like, how would you say like things like tournament nerves and tournament stamina, like how would you say those like affect you, and like how significant of factors do you think those are into like being a good player?
Huge factors, because people can, I think if you play with the same people for long enough, like your skill floors get around the same, but whether or not you're nervous, or whether or not you're focused, usually will drastically impact your ceiling or whether you're reaching your ceiling. So I think they're super important. Just kind of having like a mindset like if I lose, that's fine. I want to win. So not really motivated by fear or cortisol. You're more pushed to win to get the dopamine. I think being more carrot incentivized rather than stick incentivized is really good for tournament performance. And I've noticed that like people who played, sports in high school or even in college, they tend to have really good mindsets because you know what it's like to like have the, losing is always possible. So accepting that is like really important in order to do really well because you have to accept losing as an option before you can do your best, I think.
Yeah. That makes sense. Um, do you personally like view, I know I asked this, Sam, I'm probably gonna ask this to everyone, but do you see Melee for yourself? Like, how would you describe like the split or the balance in like the game as like a mental activity and like a physical activity?
It's definitely a physical activity. Maybe not as much as like basketball,
Hmm.
but like it's very physical. Like I would pull up to Hallel's, which were our biweekly venues, um, after biking for like 12 minutes, like the freezing. I say that as a Californian, obviously not freezing to somebody like you, but like 30-degree kind of windy weather, and like I couldn't play because my hands were so cold.
Hmm.
Um, and things like your hands not being arthritic or your hands being warm enough are super impact how well you can play, and especially like your controller too. Like your controller's physical part, it has nothing to do with how you think of the game,
Hmm.
but it's your interface with the game. And if your controller sucks, you're gonna be bad no matter what.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it definitely imposes like us like it definitely has like an effect on like your consistency and like
Mm-hmm.
at the very least like it
It
definitely
can
affects your
mess with your
bottom
mental
line and
game
it can
too.
also yeah. I've definitely had that like I remember one of the only times I ever got like really tilted at a tournament. I think it's actually the only time that I've ever been like mentally just like I wanted to win, but I just didn't have like the like fortitude for it in the moment. Was when it was I was playing at an SSS and I was playing a Puff versus I was playing as Puff versus like a Fox I think, and like the controller I was playing on like whenever the left side of the C stick like it felt like the whole zone was just like a down air zone. So like I just like could not like forward air or back air in that direction. And so I remember I missed so many like freebie like edge guards, like neutral exchanges, like just from like throwing out like weird down airs. And it was just like frustrating me so much. And like that was like one of the only times I remember that. But yeah, I can agree that it definitely can have an effect in that regard. Um, so, judging by what you said earlier, it sounds like when you're trying to like outmaneuver and outplay your opponent, you're trying to do it a little bit more, maybe not a bit more, but you kind of talked about like more the mental aspect and like the physical like aspect of it, like kind of being like overwhelming or like mechanically superior and like trying to like push that. Would you agree with that or no? Would you say that's not exactly true?
You said that I try to mentally outplay,
Or like
but
I guess like
sorry, what did you say about the physical?
basically like how do you feel your play style is expressed through like your like mentality in the game, like sort of like the things that you're like approaching like tactically. Oh, I think Discord might have just crashed. Oh no, okay, it just froze for a sec. Like
I think we're good.
how do you go into like how do you play in terms of like playing to your opponent versus like playing to like the game, if that maybe makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, how do I approach beating an opponent? Could I answer that question?
Yeah, that should be fine.
It's kind of just like, um, if I'm not playing really hot, like I think the better I'm playing, the more I'm relying on like doing fundamentally sound things that are just like good approach options or like good things to do, like good mix-ups,
Hmm.
just things that work in my favor no matter what's going on in the opponent's mind. I think obviously that'll change as you get to better opponents. But when I'm playing not as good, I kind of give people tests like, okay, if I do this, what are you going to do?
Hmm.
And if somebody doesn't know how to pass a certain test, then I'll just keep throwing that test at them. I keep putting situations where that test or tests similar to that. So like if somebody doesn't know how to get off the ledge, say in like the Marth Ditto, I will keep putting them on the ledge and I will really value stage control over like getting hits.
Hmm.
And I'll try to get reversals to the ledge as much as possible until they can show me like, oh, I actually know how to get out of the situation consistently.
Hmm.
So I guess it kind of depends on like whether I know for sure that I can put people into situations they're not comfortable in,
Hmm.
and also how well I'm playing.
Right. Okay. That like I guess that makes sense. Like, and that kind of answers another interesting question of like playing like on your A game versus like your B or like your D game even. Um, I mean, I think that sounds like a pretty sound like approach though to like playing your opponents and stuff. Um, so bringing it back to like the local scene a bit, what would you say are people, like players or yeah, like people in the scene that like you feel like you had particularly good or bad matchups with, like either, you know, in terms of like results or in terms of like the enjoyment.
In terms of enjoyment, I always liked playing against like Tommy because I feel like in terms of our skill levels, I think he's definitely a better player than me. But we matched up well. I think part of that is Smart Falco. Part of that is like I played with him a lot, so I know some of the things that I can get him on. He's not playing super hot. I always liked playing against Jake, even though he would whoop me, because it was kind of just like every time I played Jake, it was here's what you are not good at, and here's what you need to do better at.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things that I can read off of you that you need to start like getting mix-ups for.
Mm-hmm.
And then like people who I played more, probably like Steven. I really enjoyed my sets with Steven because at first they were really back and forth. Actually, no, at first he beat me. He just whooped me, and then we went pretty back and forth. And then I think the last year that we were active, I was beating him more, but in the last month or two before COVID hit, he was getting some back. So that has always been a fun matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Really frustrating for both of us at times. We both have thrown controllers and raged a bit in that matchup because that matchup's dumb. That matchup's stupid. Marth Luigi is just I feel bad for Luigi, but it can be done on Marth instances too. Like I've lost 2 or 3 sets from misfires, so that sucks.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Horrible for me.
That definitely feels getting outplayed by the game feels bad.
Yeah. I wish I had the chance to play more of the alumni that left when I was like a freshman or a sophomore.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's good sets with the people I listed.
Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of sort of coming into SB versus like now, like how would you say that your impression of like the scene, like be it gameplay, like people, culture, like how would you say it like has changed over time? Like you don't have to answer objectively either. Like I'm more interested in like your subjective, like how you feel about it.
Yeah. I think we've probably gotten a little bit worse as a scene.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just me knowing more people, but I feel like it's super homey, and like I feel more included. Maybe that's just because I was more involved in the scene as time went on.
Mm-hmm.
It's maybe a little bit less centralized now in terms of like play groups. It's not just like 1 or 2 big play groups. It's like a lot of like it feels almost like nodes, lots of separate nodes, like friendship nodes, and like they kind of just coalesce into the bigger group organization.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like more decentralized, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the vibe, it's always been just a chill vibe. Like, nobody takes themselves too seriously. Like we know we're kind of a shitty region. We're right next to SoCal, so we get washed by people from SoCal, from Ventura, all the time. So we don't have too much of an ego. It's a chill scene. I really like it compared to SoCal.
Yeah, that makes sense. Would you say, like in terms of like involvement and stuff, did you feel like your role, if you like, so to speak, in your SB Melee like changed over time, or do you feel like it was always kind of steady and like you just kind of appeared at more events and stuff as time went by?
I definitely feel like my role changed because I think as I started getting better, I felt more of a pressure to like practice and stay good and also come out to events because people want to play against like the best players in any region.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
It's just more fun for people who are like putting time into the game to have players on top come out so that they have a chance to beat them. So I felt like as I got like more in the top 3 range, more pressure to play. But I've never like done really much of TOing, or I never had a car, so I could never help with logistics that much. So it was always just kind of like I chipped in. I played the game. I dipped a lot. I dipped early a lot, but mostly just a player. I would say that hasn't really changed.
Okay, that's pretty fair. Would you say that you ever wanted to have a different role, like at any point in time, like when you by the time you had become like the best or like one of the best players in like the scene, was it like what you wanted at the time, or did it just kind of like happen? And like, were you happy? I guess by the time you got there, were you happy to be there?
Yeah, definitely. It's I mean, I can't complain. And I worked hard my first 2.5 years. I think it was kind of weird to me because like in some ways I didn't feel like I truly earned becoming like top three because people left that I think if they still went to school at SB they would beat me, like Jake. If Tommy was still here, I think he'd be above me. And so like in some ways it kind of felt like I just kind of got it via people leaving, and I didn't really improve. The year where I got top, I think top first. Sorry, I got the top position. Wasn't really practicing that much, so it didn't really feel like I earned it. But in terms of like, if I want another role, no, I would not. I wouldn't want to be a TO. That's so much stress.
Yeah,
also,
that's fair.
My voice isn't super loud, so compared to like Alan or Nesto, I would probably not be good at corralling people.
So
I think being a player is like the best role for me.
Okay. I mean, that's good.
Show up when I want to.
Having players is important. I think people devalue like how important it is to have like people just playing the game and like be like, good at it, like in the relative sense at least. Like in competition, like everyone needs like goals, There's a reason that people like overcoming goals, and so like when it's kind of one of those things where it's like, the thing where people say like it's lonely at the top, or like it's harder to like you rarely see people like be as passionate about holding number one as they are about like taking it for the first time or taking it back. Give me a second. I'm gonna turn the lights on in my room because it's darker than I expected. Just a moment. So would you kind of going back or going a bit more general, so in terms of like or going a bit more specific, I guess is a better way of putting it, do you have any specifically like I guess like formative like melee experiences, like in terms of like just getting into the game and like also as well as like Santa Barbara?
I think formative stuff for me, I probably would remember more like the social stuff. So like I remember when I met certain people. I met Ernie at a Hillel, and I think we walked. I was walking back to the freshman dorms, and he lived, I think, kind of close to campus, so we were walking together. I remember that pretty vividly, actually. I remember I wasn't saying his name because I wasn't certain about what his name was. He was like, "Dude, you know my name, right? My name is Ernesto," and I was like, "Oh, okay."
And you were like, "Oh, right."
Yeah, I was like, "Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah.
Still remember. I mean, I remember hanging out with like you and Steven so much at the Spicy House, like freshman year and sophomore year. Gameplay wise, it kind of all blends together. But I think what really kept me playing was just how much I enjoyed being around everybody else, and like playing the game with people in the scene has been really fun.
Would you say then that would you say that you are more invested in like the game or like the community and like the culture around it?
I think at this point, definitely the community. Like if everybody, like if I woke up overnight and overnight it was like everybody was playing Rocket League instead of Melee, I probably would just play Rocket League because I like these are all my friends, So I'd rather just probably switch, yeah. And if it was like a shitty game, like we were playing, I don't know, like League of Legends, and I would probably maybe question everybody's life choices a bit, but try to play a couple games.
Yeah, give it a shot, give it an honest try. Yeah.
Yeah. At this point, it's definitely the community.
Okay. Just a couple more things before we open it up to viewers and stuff. So, what do you think was like, if there is one to you, like, the SB, like, golden age, like, for you at least? Like, is there, like, a golden age of SB Melee, or is there, like, not, or does not any one particular time period stick out to you?
objectively, I think the SB golden age was before I came to school. It was when Cool Kid and Sakasumoto and Tommy were like playing.
When West Balls came to our locals and got second.
Yeah. Wait, would Cool Kid beat him?
I think
Saka, or like Mac D.
I think it was Saka or Mac D took a tournament over him when it was at Harold Frank Hall.
Oh, that's so sick. I'd say those are probably objectively the golden days. For me, the golden days are probably when we had Hillel and when we had Ivy Vapor. I know those aren't like the same time periods totally, but
roughly that time period. Yeah. Okay. What makes that like your personal like golden era?
We had probably we had better players then. Like Jake was still here, Tommy was still here. I'd say like we had a lot of strong upperclassmen. Like Cam was really good, and like it's gonna be it's kind of like rose tinted goggles because I was bad back then, so I felt like I was getting better, and it's a lot more fun to prove yourself against proven talent than to kind of just be like near the top and like stagnant a little bit. So yeah, I'd say like that's why it was the golden age for me, just because it's definitely subjective, but it was really fun for me at the time to try to go up against like these really good players.
Right.
Also, we traveled a hell of a lot more back then.
Yeah, I remember. I remember when Malachi was like entering tournaments like every weekend. Like I would go like close to like every other weekend with him, I think, or like if not every other weekend, then like at least once a month I would like go with him to like tournaments. I remember we went to.
I think he entered like 100 tournaments.
Yeah, he did 100. I think he did 102 if I recall correctly. He's gonna be on this on Thursday, so he can give his input then. But yeah, I remember there was one time. This was like before I even knew him particularly well. Just him and I went to Santa Maria, and like he just went there and like won their 8-person local, and I was like, damn, like really on the grind at all costs. And I remember seriously? I was just like, but I was like impressed at like the dedication, just like squeeze in any opportunity to enter something, and it usually, and like a part of why that stands out to me is because it was just the two of us, and usually it was like several people, like maybe even multiple cars, like just going down to like SSS and stuff like that. But I think Melee as a whole was like had more events during that time period. Like it was like right around like the Dock and Apex, like which was a huge boom of play. I mean, you said yourself, I think that you joined around then, and Sam mentioned that as well. So yeah, I think that was like because I started playing right before, it was right after like the Dark Age kind of began. Like it was like one of the first tournaments I ever watched was like Genesis 1. And I remember like at the time, like if there was like an event like in just like anywhere, it was like kind of a big deal. Like scenes like were like, I mean, that was probably the scene at its smallest, I feel, other than like, when it literally had just started. So, and I think that the scene at its biggest was like during 2016 to 17. Like I felt like every tournament was like breaking records. And so just on the topic of tournaments, I guess the way I'll segue out of like my own questions is and so viewers, if anyone in the chat has questions, you can start typing them now and we'll take them in a little bit. But I wanted to know, do you have a favorite or least favorite tournament in SB? Favorite and least favorite, I guess.
Least favorite tournament, hands down, Tropicana Villa. I think that was one of Ernesto's tournaments that he ran. I didn't really want to enter. Nothing against Ernesto. His logistics were great. Fun tournament. Even had like a pretty sick massage chair. But I wasn't really like feeling it. And then I was sitting in winners finals, and Hawk comes through losers to play me, and we play on Battlefield, game 1, and he kind of whoops me. Like I was just doing like lots of dumb shit, like shield grabbing and dumb cheesy Mars stuff, and I was like, all right, let's go back. I lose again. I was like, okay, no, let's go back. And I think I lost all 6 games of that set. So he took sets, not reverse swept me, but he just full swept me. It was all on Battlefield. I think it was over within like maybe 18, 19 minutes. One of the shittiest grand finals performances I've ever had. And I spiked my controller afterwards in the privacy of my own backyard.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably my least favorite. Most hype one, I think, was when Blossy came.
One of the LANs, yeah.
Yeah, it was a LAN, and I was playing pretty well that day. It was back when I was practicing more, and I beat him in winners finals. Mm-hmm. Off of some dumb side B shit, which is like.
I remember, yeah.
It's always funny when you win a set off that. I took a set off Tim doing that in my freshman year and got one off of Blossy doing that, so that's always fucking funny. Mm-hmm. And then it was really close second set of grand finals.
Yeah, I remember.
And he just edged it out, but it was nice because like people were cheering for me and it was really hype.
Yeah.
That was probably my favorite tournament.
Mm-hmm. It's a good pick. I remember when he showed up. That was like so random. Like, because he started appearing in bigger tournaments later.
Yeah, I think he just thought like, oh, let me win some money real fast.
Yeah,
so he wasn't wrong.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, those are good picks.
So grimy too, because I remember I was trying to get friendlies with him.
Oh yeah, and he was like,
he was charging.
Yeah, he was charging.
Yeah, he was charging for friendlies.
Yeah,
he was money matches only. And I was like, bro, I played him for a money match. Just to get a feel for like what he would be like in bracket, and he was crazy. He played way worse in bracket than he was playing for the money match. Like he was just all over me. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So I just ended up dash backing the entire set, I think, and that's how I ended up winning.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, those are like ascended beyond like seriously's. Those are like formalies.
Yes.
So. Sam is relaying a question from Nesto, which is, what is your favorite in-region rivalry? I'm not sure if you feel like you already answered this, but if you want to answer it more directly. And he says, specifically though, he says, answer does not have to include himself.
Okay. I don't know. I know Ernesto always like, he has won against me before. I don't consider Ernesto like a rival like that, mostly because I haven't really played that much. Like to be honest with you, we played lots of friendlies, but I feel like we've only met in tournament 3, maybe 4 times, and I think half of them have been super scuffed sets.
Right.
Whereas I played Steven probably like 12, maybe 15 times in bracket. So definitely Steven, because it's been so back and forth.
Yeah.
Another good one is like in terms of just friendlies, Sam and I have the best rivalry because our friendlies can be so.
Oh, I think Discord froze. One sec, guys. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, Discord froze. My bad. Here, you wanna go again real quick? Sorry about that.
You did it freeze that.
I think it froze right as you were saying the first so.
I'm sorry, my monologues are shitty.
Don't worry about it.
I already talked about Steven.
Yeah. You're just about to start talking about Sam.
Then, yeah, Sam and I, it's just complete toss-up who's beating the other person that day. He also calls me out my habits the hardest of anyone in region. And he also has like the nastiest edge guards on Martha's box, so probably Sam for friendlies.
Okay. I guess as an extension / clarification of Nesto's question, he wants to know now more specifically your favorite rivalry that doesn't involve you. I have a suspicion that he's trying to bait himself into this podcast, but we'll see.
My favorite rivalry, definitely Tommy and Malachi, because for a while I think Tommy was just whooping him. Tommy's record against Malachi is kind of dumb. Malachi definitely brought it back as he got better, but I always just like seeing Tommy make fun of Malachi. It's always a good time.
Yeah, I remember. For a long time, she was like, there was like a weekend where he'd get like a Thursday, I guess, where he would take him to like game 3, and then like the next, or game 5, and then like lose, and then like the next week it was just like 3-0. And then like it felt like it was like you never like it felt like there was no like linear sense of like, oh, he's gonna take it soon. It just felt like any time it could be, but sometimes he would just get whooped. And then I remember the first time
Yeah.
he beat Tommy, and like I could be wrong. I'll have to double check with him, but I think I recall like at the time like he wasn't even like particularly excited. I think it was more like relief that like he finally had done it. But I don't want to put words into his mouth or like misrepresent him. But yeah, that was a good rivalry.
No, that sounds right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Definitely, like after you lose to somebody that many times, it definitely is more like a relief. You don't feel good about it. Maybe you feel good about it the third time you beat them, but that first time is just like, oh, go take fucking God.
Yeah, especially if you get close, I feel like it's just like, why couldn't like, it's like you find it's like, because I think a lot of the times maybe I'm not sure if you agree or disagree, because I'm not sure if you've been on that end before, but I definitely feel like it's one of those situations where it kind of feels like it's like it be like it doesn't become a skill. It's like not a question of skill. It's a question of like you have like a mental block against like this specific person. Um, and that can be really, and like breaking through that wall for some, like sometimes like rivalries just like they're close neck and neck with, but like one person is like, has all the wins, like maybe it's like 6-0, but every single time it's like game 5. And then like sometimes like the other person wins and it just like flip flops. Like, I mean, it's rare, but it happens sometimes. And I feel like in those cases it's pretty mental. So maybe the last question, not sure. So Sam's asking, what would be your ideal tourney? Like bracket setup, location, players, like how would like describe, I guess, the logistics of like your ideal tournament.
That's a good question. I really like that venue that Ernesto got. I think it was Dropsman.
Yep.
Where it was kind of like a lofted. Yeah, exactly. It was like kind of like a lofted play area, pretty small, but enough room for maybe like 6 or 8 setups. And then downstairs was the bar. I really like having like a play area and then like a social area. I think that's really cool. It's cool to have that distinction so people can kind of get away from the game if they want to. Just like ideally like that kind of location, but a little bit bigger and next to more food. Like having a Chick-fil-A right by or like an In-N-Out right next to it would be super sick. Always good to have like food on deck so that way people don't have to like order in. Like pizza's good, but it's not really the same thing as like mobbing out with a couple of other people to go get some food.
Yeah, I agree. And then in terms of players,
players, if it's like an SB local, Ben's got to be there. It'd be nice if like Jake, Malachi, Tommy could come down. If I got a cool kid appearance, like he could just come and play friendlies. He doesn't even have to enter the bracket. That would be fucking sick because he's nasty. I don't know if I've ever played against him, but I've seen just the gameplay that he does, and like he's just nasty. He's been so nasty with like Marth, Falco, Fox. Pretty sure Sheik is probably baller too. Yeah, was there another part of that question that I'm missing?
Not particular. I guess like bracket setup was another question. Just standard double elim.
Yeah. I don't really like round robin, but you already know that.
Yeah, of course.
I think double elim with like a noob ladder at the end is pretty good.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean anything else is like I guess just any other specifics you would want to get into, but I think that ideal tournament is like, I think when I was like the most competitive, I remember like my ideal tournament, like I'd like to be the worst player there because like anyone I play against feels like pretty like it feels like winning and like feeling like I got something of value is just beating anybody like there at all.
That's cool. Yeah, that's a nice feeling.
I know, and like it's a low pressure environment. But I think that's an interesting way to sort of also express people's like, I don't know, values and like relationship with competition to the game. But I know that it's getting to be 7, so I think that if you gotta go, then good time to cut it. But
oh yeah, if we don't have any more questions, this is a good time.
Yeah, I don't think anymore. Unless anyone wants to just shoot in like a super last second one. If anybody has something to say, I'll just wait like a little bit longer. But otherwise, just kind of do an outro type thing. But I had a yeah. I mean, I hope that didn't feel too long, too short. Kind of feels like we
Yeah,
blazed
that
through
was
an
fun.
hour pretty fast. I feel like, um,
Yeah.
but I'm
It's good
glad
to
that I
talk to you,
got.
Kenny.
Yeah, you too. I'm glad that my stuff is all working now. Like it's not a PowerPoint with my alerts going off. Like that's pretty nice. Learned how to mute that, fix the other stuff thanks to Spencer's input. So yeah, I appreciate it. And
You got
I think that yeah, I'm gonna post my plan is every single time I finish an episode, I'm gonna post the VOD, like a link to the VOD of the last episode of the previous episode. So I'm just gonna do that,
I
and
like that.
so you guys once I'll post this very soon actually in about like 2 hours because Spencer Strider will have his at 8 o'clock p.m. if you guys want to tune back in for that. So we'll be there for that. And otherwise though, thanks a bunch for your time and input. Really appreciate it. So have a
Yeah,
good
thanks for
dinner.
watching. I don't know who's in the chat besides Sam, but thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah,
This has been
Sam,
pretty fun.
Spencer, looks like
Spence?
Noah, Chris, and Ernesto. I could just look at the viewer list, but that's no fun.
True.
But yeah, thanks a bunch for your time and input.
Yeah. I'll catch you later, Kenny.
Yep, you too. See you around.